Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. Moving into a new neighborhood is always a gamble. You never really know what kind of people you'll end up living next to. I thought I'd done my due diligence when house hunting. The place I settled on was a modest two-story in a quiet cul-de-sac. Sure, it needed some updating, but the price was right and the neighborhood seemed nice enough. Boy, was I wrong. Within a week of moving in, I met the president of the Homeowners Association. Let's call her Karen. Right off the bat, something about her rubbed me the wrong way. She just had that judgmental, holier-than-thou vibe, like she was ready to scrutinize my every move. Our first interaction set the tone for what was to come. "Hello," she chirped in an overly sweet voice, clipboard in hand. "I'm Karen, president of the Homeowners Association. Just wanted to go over a few quick rules with you. We don't allow any exterior changes without approval. Lawn decor must be tasteful. No fences over 4 feet and absolutely no loud noises or parties after 9 p.m. Who did this lady think she was? I hadn't even finished moving in yet, and here she was dictating what I could and couldn't do with my own property. Still, I politely nodded along, not wanting to kick up a fuss just yet. Oh, how I'd come to regret that decision. I decided to start off with some minor renovations. New flooring, painting the walls, that sort of thing. All interior stuff, so I figured I didn't need Karen's approval. How wrong I was. Not 3 days after the work started, I got an angry knock on my door. There stood Karen, face pinched in a scowl, waving a piece of paper at me. "Just what do you think you're doing?" she demanded. I was bewildered. Reflooring my living room? "Not without homeowners association approval, you're not." She shoved the paper at me. It was a violation notice, citing me for unauthorized renovations, and informing me I'd be fined if I didn't cease work immediately. I tried reasoning with her, explaining it was all indoor work that didn't affect the outward appearance of the home. Karen wouldn't hear it. She insisted any renovations required approval, even if nobody could see them. I'd have to submit an application and wait for review at the next homeowners association meeting. This was ridiculous, but I didn't want to make waves as the new guy. I figured I'd play nice, submit my application, and once it was approved, I could get back to work. Oh, what a naive fool I was. I soon learned that nothing gets approved in this homeowners association without a fight. At the homeowners association meeting, Karen nitpicked every detail of my application. The color scheme I'd chosen for the living room was too bold. Laminate flooring wasn't up to neighborhood standards. Even the brand of paint I planned to use wasn't to her liking. She managed to rally enough objectors to shoot down my application entirely. I was stunned and angry, but also determined not to let Karen bully me. If she wanted a fight, she'd get one. I started researching homeowners association regulations to make sure I knew my rights as a homeowner. That's when I discovered a clause governing homeowners association authority over renovations. It stated that for homes purchased within the last 6 months, owners were exempt from the approval process. Since I just bought the place, that rule applied to me. At the next meeting, I calmly pointed out this clause, quoting it directly from the Homeowners Association handbook. Karen's face turned an interesting shade of purple. She sputtered, accusing me of making up fake rules. I simply slid the handbook across the table, opened to the page in question, and watched with satisfaction as she read the passage. Check and mate. Karen spent the next months watching me like a hawk, just waiting for me to slip up. I made sure to abide by every homeowners association rule to the letter, not giving her an inch. When I decided to repaint the exterior, I submitted the application just for appearances. As expected, she tried rejecting the inoffensive beige color. I had to remind her that as a new homeowner I was exempt. She couldn't hide her contempt, but had no choice but to approve it. The last laugh came when I installed a 4-foot fence on the backyard property line. Karen popped up, tape measure in hand, trying to prove it was over the height limit. Nope, exactly 4 feet. She even called in an inspector to verify, who affirmed I was within regulations. The fence ruined her view of my yard, where she used to spy and take notes about my landscaping choices. I could see her simmering frustration, but she was powerless to retaliate. I had followed every rule exactly, and she had no recourse. Karen and her cronies eventually realized they couldn't control my home or intimidate me. She still liked to stick her nose up and glare whenever I was outside doing yard work. but beyond that, she left me in peace. The moral of the story? Don't mess with someone who knows the rules better than you. Turns out malicious compliance can be just as satisfying as open rebellion. The next one is a pro-revenge story. This takes place before smartphones were omnipresent. I had a friend, we'll call him Bob, who was suspicious of his wife's social circle. One of her closest friends had been caught cheating and tried to throw her under the bus as well. Bob had no proof, and things settled down for a while. Bob was an IT professional and very skilled with PCs and networks. Nearly a year later, Bob's wife was acting shady again after her high school reunion. He confided in me, and we talked through some scenarios. He jokingly mentioned a keylogger. He finally asked me to just drop it, and most of all, don't tell anyone, not even your wife. A couple of months passed, and I was up early, around 5:30, 6, getting ready for work. I received a Facebook Messenger notification and saw that I had been sent a link from Bob, but it was in a group chat. It included literally everyone we knew, her family, his family, our friends, strangers, everyone. I didn't open it. It looked like a phishing link, even though it came from him, and he's extremely cautious. A short while later, I received an email from Bob with some ominous and unsavory comments and the same link. It was a group email with the recipients openly copied. His wife's workplace, her family, her friends, his family, and other people I didn't know. I knew it was legitimate now, so I opened it. The link led to a hastily made website containing pictures and videos of his wife with another man. This wasn't hidden camera footage. It was screenshots, including video screen captures. There were weeks' worth of screenshots. He had captioned each item with snarky comments and colorful names for his wife and her lover. It was an embarrassing amount of evidence. Videos of her masturbating with her lover, chat logs about how they couldn't wait to be together again, solo masturbation videos of her and him, tons of pictures, and the final straw, trash talking her husband to her lover, comments about how much bigger and better he was. Her efforts to stroke her lover's ego were especially hurtful. I dropped what I was doing and called him. He was drunk and combative. He had been up all night making the website and drowning in liquor. He had not one good word to say about women in general. He was extremely emotional, but after some effort I convinced him to take the website down before it caused irreparable damage to his marriage, their careers, and his children. As he sobbed and logged in to remove the website, I heard loud yelling as she burst into the room. A screaming match ensued, and there was nothing I could do to pull him back. Apparently, her mother or sister saw the page and blew up her phone until she woke up and answered. She saw the website and went on the offensive. The phone call dropped after 30 seconds of her screaming, while Bob called her a whore, and I couldn't contact him again. The website was still up for the rest of the day, and he was kind enough to put a view counter on it. Hundreds of people watched her with a married former classmate. Bob had done his homework. He installed a keylogger that records the whole screen. When he was out, she would log into the PC and/or Facebook and interact with her boyfriend. Bob had found her lover, his family, his wife's family, his job, and so on. All these people were included in the Facebook and email groups. I do not know what became of her lover and his marriage, but I do know what happened to Bob's life. His wife was desperate to make amends. She tried and offered everything. In the end, it was her comments about her lover and his prowess that were her undoing. Bob tried to take her back, even after all his friends and family had seen her naked and cheating. But he couldn't get over the comments about his manhood. Bob eventually left her, gained about 100 pounds, and then finally moved as far away as possible, becoming a horrible person. I have no idea what he's doing now, as he cut off most of his friendships and family ties. She looks unattractive now, with a face shaped like a bowling ball. The line forms at the rear. The next one is a petty revenge story. When I was in 7th grade, I was at a private school, and for a project in one of my classes, I got paired up with the worst person in my class. Over the weeks of the project, the PowerPoint presentation that we had shared with each other was only touched once by him, and all he did was create a new slide, left it blank. I was pissed. For the first time ever, I absolutely refused to do all the work. My idiotic partner thought I was doing all the work for him and smiled at me every time classes started, looking smug. He never even bothered to check the PowerPoint. Little did he know that I had already informed our teacher, and that teacher gave me his blessings to just present my part, and I would be graded on that alone. The day to present came, and we were to present our projects to the entire school. Before the presentation started, he came up to me and asked if he could see the PowerPoint so he could prepare to speak his part. I just glared at him so hard he visibly paled and went back to his seat, where I continued to give him the stink eye the whole time until it was our time to present. Luckily, I was in charge of the first half of the PowerPoint, so I started things off. I knew I hit it out of the park, based on how our teacher was nodding his head from the back of the room. At the end of my last slide, I turned and looked at my partner, who had gone pale despite all of his freckles. All right, insert partner name here. Ready to present your part? I didn't bother waiting for a response and just clicked the clicker. A blank slide showed up on the screen, exactly what he had contributed to the project, and then the PowerPoint ended. It took a few seconds for people to realize it was over, and there was a general hubbub of confusion. Finally, the principal stepped up and asked my partner what was going on. Mr. Freckles looked away and mumbled something about it being on a flash drive left upstairs in his backpack. He was allowed to leave the room to go retrieve it. I stood there in front of the whole school, smiling to myself, for 10 minutes. The idiot still hadn't returned, so my teacher suggested we move on with the presentations. A couple of teachers left to go find my partner, who was quickly found hiding in a closet in one of the classrooms upstairs. I got a 98% on the project, and the idiot got a big, fat 0. He ended up failing the class and had to redo the year. Before I left the private school and went back to public schools for high school, he had managed to get kicked out of the school program, and I never heard from him again. The next one is a malicious compliance story. When I was in junior high many years ago, I was usually a quiet person. We had an older gentleman as our science teacher. About halfway through the school year, he broke his leg. I think he had been doing some work on his house and fell off a ladder. We got a substitute teacher, a middle-aged woman who told us initially she would only be substituting for about a week or two. The class was usually not too bad, but one day while she was trying to lecture, people weren't really listening, and it was getting a little bit louder. She didn't really handle it well and started screaming at the whole class and ranting about our behavior and disrespect. She finally ended with, "And if you don't like it, you can just leave." Now I had been sitting quietly the whole time, but her yelling was quite off-putting for me. I listened to her whole rant and kind of took it personally, although I knew I shouldn't. It just kind of set me off, so as soon as she shrieked out that last part of, "You can just leave," I stood up forcefully. It pushed my chair back about 4 feet. I was in the back of the room. My chair scraped loudly and made that metallic sound. When I stood up, the whole class turned around and everyone just stared at me. The substitute and I just stared at each other for a few seconds. Her mouth was open and then I just walked out, slamming the door behind me. I called her bluff. I guess I have a bit of a rebellious streak in me that doesn't come out all the time. But something about her yelling and losing it in front of the class rubbed me the wrong way and brought it out in me at that moment. I took a minute, walked over, and got a drink of water at the fountain, then casually walked back into the classroom. She asked where I went, very quietly, and I told her I was thirsty and wanted a drink of water. The whole class was watching when I came back in, but after I returned, the rest of the class went fine. She didn't send me to the principal's office, which I fully expected. She kept teaching the rest of the semester because the injury to our teacher was worse than they thought. She never yelled at the class again or made any more ultimatums. She and I never brought it up again. The next one is an entitled people story. This happened several years ago when I picked up a part-time job working at the mall. I had started working at a kiosk in the mall, selling t-shirts, ball caps, golf balls, etc. They had a catchphrase that read, "Shut up and," varied from sport to sport. They sold well, but the owner-manager/boss had the personality of a nut bar. I worked the late shift until the mall closed, Monday through Friday. I showed up one afternoon for my shift, and the boss woman was there. I proceeded to put on my smock and get ready to take over when she told me that she did not need me that day. No notice, no nothing. I asked her when I should come back in, and she said that she was unsure. It happened to be payday, so I asked for my check, and she said she did not have it done up yet, but it would be ready the next day. So I left and came back the next afternoon to collect the paycheck. She still did not have it ready, and I would have to come back again. This was not sitting well with me, so I went to the police in the mall and asked them what to do. The police did not have a lot to say, but said management at the mall might shut them down if they don't pay, I checked with mall management and they told me that I should see Revenue Canada. So I phoned Revenue Canada, made an appointment, and went in a few days later. Revenue Canada was very helpful. I explained the whole thing to them, told them which mall this was at, and they made phone calls to the mall. Mall management cooperated, gave the name of the business, the name of the owners, bank information, and everything. They went into the bank info and froze the account, and then we all drove to the mall. They came and shut the business down, took all the inventory, and spoke to the owner. She handed me a check, and I showed it to the Revenue Canada agents. They took it and photocopied it. She had apparently deducted so much money for 2 weeks of work, all in income tax. The revenue agents set up another appointment with me for the next week at their office. They took the income tax overture I paid and made sure it was turned into a credit, so I would not have to pay more. Then they told me they are auditing them for 7 years, which effectively bankrupted them. It made my day, and many mall workers were smiling when they found out. It was definitely a mess around find out moment. The next one is an entitled parent story. I, 33F, am going to preface this by saying my 6-year-old daughter's father, 37M, I'm going to call him Jeff, has never been my romantic partner. We had a one-night stand. I don't like people calling him my ex, since it makes it seem like we had some kind of emotional attachment. He was never involved after I told him I was pregnant, and actually wanted me to terminate the pregnancy. But I decided to raise my child alone, since I have enough money to raise her without child support. For the whole pregnancy and the first 4 years, Jeff was not in the picture. On my mother's recommendation, I did send him pictures and invited him to special events, but he always replied that he had no interest in my daughter. 2 years ago, he reappeared and began demanding parental rights. When I didn't do what he wanted, he sued and was told no, he was not getting parental rights. He was given the offer to pay child support, and then we can revisit giving him actual rights, but he has refused. He has the money, much more than me, but he refuses. I still offered to let him see my daughter in a casual manner, no child support needed, with the agreement that anything legal, medical, or educational will not involve him. He pushed the boundaries, and we had a fallout. After that, we didn't hear from him for almost 6 weeks before he called to meet for Christmas. After much discussion, I agreed to bring my daughter over on the condition my daughter's godparents could come. Thus, we went over for Christmas dinner, and finding out Jeff is married, and had never told his family he had a child. It was great to be judged by a bunch of strangers. It was uncomfortable the whole time. I'm going to use fake names, but let's say my daughter's name is Katie. His wife kept calling my daughter Gabrielle. Not the actual name she used, but it was that different from my daughter's name. The wife was also very physical, trying to pick up my daughter or parent her. I would block her or tell her to please let me deal with my child. The whole time she pretty much ignored me. But Katie didn't seem nervous, so I decided to just bide my time. I hit my limit when my daughter said she needed the bathroom, and this stranger went, "Oh, Gabby, you need potty. Let mommy change you." My daughter hasn't worn diapers in a while now, and she's more than capable of going alone to the bathroom. I immediately told her to stay away from my daughter and that we were leaving. The woman started wailing that I was kidnapping her baby girl and tried to lunge at me. Her in-laws got in the middle and held her, consoling her and saying that we weren't leaving and for her to calm down like she was the victim. At that point, I just glared at Jeff and told him he better explain or I would be calling the police. He asked me to speak in private in another room and that I could just leave my daughter with his parents. No way that would ever happen. Katie's godparents took her with them, despite the wife having a full meltdown. Jeff and I spoke outside, and he explained that he and his wife recently lost a daughter. I'm not going to give specific details on that. All I'll say is it was sudden and nobody's fault, and as I can only imagine, it had caused some psychological issues for his wife. Apparently, he had the brilliant idea that having Katie pass as their lost child would help his wife, without telling me, and that's why he wanted visitations and parental rights. He pleaded for me to leave my daughter with him for a little bit. I asked him what was his plan when his wife heals. His response was disgusting. "Well, I'll just send Katie back with you and it will be just like before." I told him he was insane if he thought I would let him use my daughter like that. What his wife needs is therapy with a professional, not feeding her delusions. And I would not let that woman within miles of my daughter. He told me I was being cruel and didn't know the pain of losing a child. I agreed with him but reminded Jeff that my priority is not his family. It's my child. What he and his family do to work through their grief has nothing to do with us. I also told him to call his lawyer because I am making sure he never has contact with my child. So that's what I'm bracing for. He's been blasting my phone since Christmas, but I can easily ignore him. My daughter and I are doing a small travel vacation. This isn't an update, just something I feel needs to be said. My daughter is set for life monetarily. She has a trust, and I make really good money in my position. If she was 18 right now, I could put her through college without a loan. She doesn't need child support for the quality of life. If I could get child support and never worry about her father trying something, I would be suing him in a heartbeat. But after talking to a lawyer and realizing the risk, I've taken the decision that child support or possible inheritance is not worth my child's safety. Safety is always first. January 6, 2024. Hey everyone, Happy New Year's. This isn't so much a real update as just letting people know we are home and safe. My daughter is spending the rest of her vacation with her godparents on another trip while I work on things. Moving might be something I'll be looking into, though that is a long-term plan considering all it takes. I won't share too many details on what my lawyer is going to be doing, but we are absolutely going to push for an RO. I might not post for some time, at least not until things settle. I do appreciate all the support and good advice. I'm taking a lot of it into account as I plan how to move forward. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.